grade. So we're still in The Case of the Dog-Napped Cat book, okay? But we're winding down just like we're winding down the year, all right? So we will be continuing in chapter 14 today. Let's see what happens. Are you ready? Okay. Mark and Travis backtracked until they reached the drop cloth. They checked three until Mark found the one that was worn and soft enough for the purpose. He held it up, letting it flap gently. Understanding dawned in Travis's eyes. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? He grinned. Uh-huh, Mark replied. Hang on, let me move you a little bit. There we go. All right. Da-da-da-da-da. Samson has that guy Albert spooked, literally. The man is scared out of his mind already. If we attach the cloth to the pulley that swings down from the loft to the warehouse floor, there, right below it, Travis nodded, Albert'll run like a rabbit. But Mick won't, Mark said. He has a gun. Scared? Travis asked. Sure, who wouldn't be? Mark replied. And remember, I promised Dad that we would only do surveillance, no capture stuff. That's why I called him on the way here. He'll be here in a few minutes. Then why bother with this? Sorry. Because Mick has that gun, Mark said, and Dad will probably come in the front. That's just the way he is. We're going to cover the back. You've really thought it through, Travis said, reluctant admission in his voice. I would have just charged right in. We've been through this once or twice before, Mark said, remembering the time Sheriff Hadley had found him trapped, hanging upside down in a tree. They worked silently. First, they draped the cloth over a rod and tied the rod onto the hook of the pulley. Then they secured the pulley to a length of rope so that pulley would be released from the side. Mick will probably shoot at the cloth, Mark whispered. We'll have to get out of range. Travis nodded. Below them, the men still paced impatience evident in their restless movements. The boys finished their work and moved back into the next boxes. Think Albert's really gonna buy it? Travis wondered, worried. Sure, even Mick hadn't been able to talk him out of what he thinks he saw, Mark said. He settled back against the box to wait. Down below, even Albert had fallen asleep. Car tires crunched on the shell road outside. Travis and Mark crawled to the edge of a lot and peered over. The garage door began to lift slowly, flooding the warehouse with sunlight. Mark shrank back, almost tripping over Travis. Who is it? Eldridge, I think, Mark whispered. A dark figure silhouetted against the light stepped in through the door. He got back into his Mercedes-Benz and drove into the warehouse. The car stopped and the man got out. It's about time you got here, Mick said, looking at his watch. I phoned you from the crossroads 15 minutes ago. Let's get moving. We've got to get out of this town. This all you have? The man pointed to the two leashed dogs. Remember all the other dogs that had run away when the door swung open. Remember that? All right. Yeah, it's a long story, Mick sounded angry. Just pay us for the two and the other shipment and we'll be on our way. Mark touched Travis's arm as three shadows darted swiftly across the sunlit space and into the shelter of the warehouse. Two wore uniforms, the other a suit. "Get into place," Mark whispered. Below, the men continued to argue. Aldrich began to count out money. "More," Mick snarled. "We had expenses on this job." "But just two dogs? That hardly—" A bump from the window behind the boys sent them spinning around. "Maria Dolores!" Mark exclaimed. "Quiet! You nearly scared me to death." "What's going on?" She crept up to them, almost tipping over the coil of rope. Travis scowled at her. "How did you find us?" "I came with the others, silly," she whispered. "Then why couldn't you have waited in the car like a good little girl?" Maria Dolores leaned against his shoulders and smiled. Travis lost his balance. As he scrambled onto his knees, muttering, he took his place beside Mark. Travis glanced at her and regained his hold on the rope. Maria Dolores crept to the edge of the loft and peered over. "You owe us 2,000 for this operation," Mick was saying. "It's not our fault it went sour, and you planned to back out on us." Eldridge stepped back. "Now, Mick," he said, "take it easy. We can work something out, I'm sure." The man's voice boomed from the shadows. "Don't bet on it. Drop that gun and put your hands up." Mick whirled around and fired at the voice. The bullet echoed in the huge building. "Now!" Mark yelled. Travis yanked hard on the rope. Yanked on the rope. The pulley shuddered and squeaked. It separated from the moorings with a high, shrieking wail of rusty machinery. Albert stared up at it, then leaped away from the other two men. Something white swooped out of the darkness. It swung toward them in a curving R. I don't know what that means. Let's try that again. Something white swooping out of the darkness. It swung toward them in a curving arc. Oh, there you go. Albert yelled and ran for the door. "Don't shoot, don't shoot," he shouted. "I give up." Mick turned toward the onrushing attacker and emptied his gun at it. When bullets seemed to pass right through the swooping white form, Eldridge ran after Albert. Only Mick stood his ground. The white form reached the end of its arc and swung back to the loft. Mark groaned. "What now?" I got it, muttered Maria Dolores. Too late. Mark tried to grab her. She hooked her leg over the railing and swung down to intercept the cloth on the pulley. For an instant she held it, getting her aim. Then when she released it, the pulley headed straight for Mick. He held the empty gun tightly, ready to strike the intruder. The gun handle swished through the rotten cloth as the first folds enveloped the waiting man. Thud! The iron hook of the pulley grazed Mick's head. Mick crumbled to the floor. "Yahoo!" Mark and Travis clapped one another on the shoulder. "We did it!" Maria Dolores swung back into the loft. "We?" she said, black eyebrows raised like birds' wings. "Yeah, we," Travis said, pounding her on the back. "All of us." "You kids get down from there!" Sheriff Hadley's voice sounded like thunder. "Mark, It was his dad's courtroom voice. Come here. Oops, Mark said softly. I think we're in trouble. He and Travis, followed by a quiet Maria Dolores, climbed down the ladder to the waiting men. The deputy was leading Albert and Mr. Aldrich away. Mark still lay stretched out on the floor of the warehouse. Hey, where's Skeeter? Travis yelled at Albert. Where's my dog? Albert stared at him. Hold on, son. One of the deputies pulled Travis away. If you're missing a dog, we'll find him when we sort this business out. Speaking of business, I thought I told you to stay out of police business, said Sheriff Hadley. Sorry. Mark, you promised, Mr. Connolly stopped. Maria Dolores, I thought you were waiting in the car. But, Dad, Mark was interrupting and thumping on the side of the van. Hold on, Corey, Mark said. We're coming. The men helped release the tied boy. He struggled to his feet, then sat down abruptly as his legs began to fold under him. Here, Mr. Connolly said, let's get him inside my car. At the car, Mr. Connolly hesitated. Clearly visible was a huge cat pawing at the air freshener that hung from the rearview mirror. Mr. Connolly swung around to the sheriff's car. It was obviously already full, and the deputy had gone back for Mick. I'm sorry, Corey, he said. We found Samson in the deserted house asleep on the floor. I'm afraid we'll have to keep him in the car with us. No problem, Corey gasped as they settled in the back. Samson leaped up to the back of the seat to inspect Corey. The two stared at each other for a long minute. Neither budged. Then Samson lost interest in the boy and returned to the game with the dangling air freshener. Come on, Travis, Mr. Connolly said. We'll follow them back. He'd better still have my dog, Travis said as he slid into the back with Maria Dolores and Corey. From what I understand, they're all at Eldridge's Sarasota warehouse. None of them have been sent to pet shops yet. We should be able to pick him up tomorrow, Mr. Connolly said. Let's go, Mark. Oh, sorry. I accidentally tipped the, sorry. I tipped the table you guys are sitting on. And the table is tippity. No pictures, can you believe it? But that is the end of our story for today. So I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll find out what happens. Does Travis get his dog back? Do they ever get out of trouble, or are they still in trouble? And I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.